Picture this. It's the early 1900s. If you added up the money of this one man, it would be more than what some entire countries were worth. So rich that historians still argue about whether anyone, Bezos, Musk, anyone, has ever actually caught up to him. Even today, even after adjusting for inflation. Here's the strange part. He never dug a single oil well with his own hands. He didn't discover oil. Yet, he built the biggest fortune in American history from behind a desk, with a pen, a notebook, and one idea nobody else took seriously at the time. The real money in oil wasn't drilling it out of the ground. It was controlling everything that happened to it afterward. This is the story of John D. Rockefeller and the entire empire he built that eventually became so powerful. Let's rewind. In 1859, if you wanted to light your house at night, you burned whale oil in a lamp. Yes, actual whale fat. It was expensive, it smelled bad, and whales were slowly running out. So when prospectors struck oil in the ground in rural Pennsylvania in 1859, it wasn't just exciting, it was a total game changer. Oil could be turned into something called kerosene, which burned cleaner and cheaper than whale oil ever did. Naturally, everyone panicked and rushed in. Thousands of people grabbed shovels and drills and started digging random holes in the ground, hoping to strike it rich. Prices for oil swung wildly. A barrel might cost 10 cents 1 month and $10 the next month. Most of these prospectors went broke within a year or two. Drilling for oil, it turned out, was basically gambling with extra steps. A young bookkeeper in Cleveland named John D. Rockefeller watched all of this chaos from a distance, and he noticed something nobody else seemed to notice. Sure, drilling was a coin flip, but turning that crude oil into usable kerosene, that was a real business, one you could actually run with discipline and predict from month to month. In 1863, he put money into his very first refinery. Within a few years, he had bought his partners out completely. And in 1870, he and a small group of allies gave their company a name, Standard Oil. His plan wasn't to strike it rich once. It was to quietly own the narrow doorway that practically all American oil had to pass through before it could light a lamp in your house. Who was this guy before he became one of the richest humans who ever lived? He was born in 1839 in a small town in upstate New York. His dad, nicknamed Big Bill, was basically a traveling con man. He sold fake miracle medicine out of a wagon, and historians later discovered he was secretly living a whole second life under a fake name with a second family nobody knew about. His mom, on the other hand, was the exact opposite. Strict, deeply religious, and painfully careful with every penny. She raised the kids mostly by herself, and she drilled one lesson into young John over and over. Track every cent, waste nothing. That lesson stuck hard. At 16 years old, Rockefeller got his very first job, assistant bookkeeper, earning about 50 cents a day. He started keeping a personal notebook he nicknamed Letter A, where he wrote down literally every single cent he earned and every cent he spent, right down to the small percentage he gave to his church, even back when he barely had any money at all. That habit, obsessively tracking every dollar in and every dollar out, is basically the whole secret to how he built his dynasty. It wasn't luck. It was a teenager with a book who never ever stopped counting. By his early 20s, he was already running his own small business, trading crops and food supplies with a partner. When the oil boom came along, it wasn't some brand new skill he had to learn from scratch. Oil was simply the biggest ledger he had ever gotten his hands on. Here's the thing about Rockefeller that made him different from every other businessman of his era. He wasn't trying to make the best kerosene. he was trying to make sure nobody else could survive in the business at all. In 1872, he cut a secret deal with several major railroad companies. The deal, called the South Improvement Company, guaranteed the railroads a steady stream of business from Rockefeller. In exchange, they gave him massively discounted shipping rates. His rivals had no idea this was happening. When they found out, they were paying so much more to ship their oil that they literally could not compete anymore. When independent oil producers discovered the secret deal, they were furious, and the backlash was so loud that the deal got publicly cancelled within weeks. But by then, the damage was already done, and Rockefeller simply kept buying up his weakened competitors one by one. In just 6 weeks that same year, Rockefeller bought out 22 of his 26 local competitors. Sometimes he threatened them, "Sell now or I'll run you into the ground." Sometimes he offered surprisingly generous deals. Either way, almost nobody said no. And he didn't stop at refineries. He bought the pipelines that carried the crude oil. He bought the companies that made the wooden barrels. He bought warehouses, storage tanks, shipping docks, basically every single step between oil comes out of the ground and oil lights up somebody's living room. By the early 1880s, roughly 9 out of every 10 barrels of oil refined anywhere in America had passed through a company he controlled. Think of that. Almost the entire market run by one guy and his intelligence. To manage a business that enormous, his lawyers invented something brand new. They called it the Standard Oil Trust, formed in 1882. It let a small handful of trustees quietly control dozens of separate companies across different states as if they were secretly one giant company. There wasn't even a proper legal word yet for what he was doing. He was inventing the monopoly in real time. And the government? They hadn't even caught up yet. By the 1890s, Standard Oil wasn't just running America. It was shipping refined kerosene to homes as far away as Asia and Europe. Get that powerful, and people start paying very close attention to you. A journalist named Ida Tarbell decided to dig into Standard Oil's history, partly because her own father had been an independent oil producer whose small business got crushed by Rockefeller's tactics years earlier. She spent years going through court records, lawsuits, and interviews most reporters wouldn't have had the patience for. Starting in 1902, she published her findings as a series of magazine articles that read almost like a slow-motion crime story. Practically overnight, Standard Oil became the name Americans used whenever they talked about a company that had gotten so big, too secretive, and too powerful. And Rockefeller himself became the most famous villain in the entire country. The federal government took notice, and armed with a fairly new law called the Sherman Antitrust Act, prosecutors built a case that eventually reached the Supreme Court. In 1911, the ruling finally came down. Standard Oil had to be broken into 34 separate independent companies. It was supposed to be a punishment, a humiliation even, but something almost nobody expected happened next. When you added up the value of all 34 separate companies, the total was worth even more than the giant company had been worth as a single unit. The breakup that was designed to destroy his power ended up making him on paper the richest man of his time. Those 34 companies never actually disappeared, by the way. Look closely and you find their direct descendants are still around today. Talk of ExxonMobil and Chevron, two of the most valuable companies on the entire planet, along with the ancestors of companies like Conoco and Amoco. In a weird way, Standard Oil never really died. It just got a bunch of new names. But Rockefeller's other legacy might matter even more. Later in life, he gave away roughly half of everything he had built, an enormous sum of money for that era, funding the University of Chicago, what's now called Rockefeller University, and health campaigns that wiped out a disease called hookworm across the American South. He basically invented the modern idea of strategic giving, treating charity like a serious business with goals and results instead of just handing out money randomly. Every major foundation built by billionaires since then, including the ones run by today's tech founders, is honestly just following the plan he wrote first over 100 years ago. So what can you actually take from Rockefeller's story? Lesson 1. Don't just try to compete inside an industry. Find the one narrow spot everyone else has to pass through, the choke point, and own that instead. Lesson 2. Small habits done every single day without fail quietly turn into massive advantages over time. He didn't get rich because of one lucky break. He got rich because a 16-year-old kept a notebook and never stopped. Lesson 3. The bigger and more powerful you get, the more people will start watching you closely. Smart businesses build trust and good behavior into their plan early instead of waiting for the government to force it on them. Lesson 4. Sometimes getting broken apart isn't really the disaster it looks like. If what you built was genuinely valuable, the pieces can end up worth more than the whole. And lesson 5. People don't remember you for how you made your money nearly as much as they remember you for what you did with it. The man who once controlled 90% of American oil, John D. Rockefeller.